Welcome back to another week of The Rebel's Edge. We'll be talking about strategy, used to be called MicroStrategy, but now it's the top of the list of active stocks. We'll tell you a little bit about that and why, as well as Dion Sanders and why, all on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang!
It's official. We're ready to roll. A new week, John. It should be a lot of fun. I mean, last week, there's so many news stories out there, and now all of a sudden we're getting to earnings season, as we call it. So there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, and the earnings really kick off with a vengeance on Wednesday, Pete. JP Morgan, the banks always started off. Every once in a while, somebody slips one in just ahead of them, but it's really all about those banks and how they're doing charge-offs, consumers. Are they borrowing? Are they not interested right now? All that kind of stuff. So he is Pete Najarian. I'm Jon Najarian, and we're going to bring you the Rebel's Edge right now. Macro Minute, Pete. I'd say the president's announcement of a 30% tariff on imports, that was one of the reasons we were shaky on Friday. I say shaky because some people say, oh, it's a really harsh sell-off. I kind of rub my beard and say, harsh sell-off? The Dow was down 0.5%, Pete. So I don't know if 30% tariff on imports out of the European Union and Mexico really qualifies as a harsh sell-off at 0.5%. But again, I didn't write that headline.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I agree with you totally, John. You and I had an opportunity on Saturday morning, actually, to talk with the guys at the gal at News Nation about exactly that. I mean, the reality is, you're coming off of record highs. We've been going up, it feels like, almost every single day. And all of a sudden you come off by maybe 200, 250, 300, whatever. That really isn't a whole lot. Like you said, it's 0.5%. I mean, let's be real. I think that the most important part about this week, this macro picture right now, is the earnings, like you brought up, John. And it is really filled with nothing but the biggest and the baddest. You got Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, BlackRock, all these various names, American Express, all these names this week. They kick off, and all of a sudden you get to Friday and you're almost trying to catch your breath because it's just amazing how much is really going to be going on. And it will tell us, I think, a lot about the economy and the rest of the world and how people are spending and all that. And some of the how about some of the potential, John, of the acquisitions that are going out there? Because almost every single day you and I talk about a stock that's got an acquisition and it's a monstrous one. Well, they usually end up leaning on the big boys for that type of work to make sure they can get that done. So I'm going to say that we're looking forward to it, but I already feel very positive about it.
Well, you probably feel positive if you have some Bitcoin too, Pete.
Yeah,
because Bitcoin hit $123,000 today, driven by significant institutional buying. I guess some $3.7 billion flew into assets last week, Pete, and that's institutional buying. Not every bit of volume in Bitcoin is institutional, but certainly the 3.7 billion that they were tracking, that's institutional. So that's giving you an idea of the acceleration that we're seeing into digital assets, Bitcoin in particular.
Yeah, my fantastic future is going to be silver, which doesn't seem to want to stop, John. It seems like it goes up 2 steps almost every day and occasionally comes back a step. But here we are now sitting right around $39. Pretty daggone impressive move that we've seen from silver. We talk about gold, we talk about crude, we talk about a lot of other things, copper, but it's interesting to see where silver is now. You talked about Bitcoin. I'm going to also talk about the volatility real quick. Everybody's talking about, like you said, geez, it was a harsh sell-off on Friday. And then we come in today and the markets didn't look all that great, right? They were in the red. I don't think any of that was harsh. And all you got to do is take a look at the volatility index and say, let's see, we got at the highest end of today, including last Friday, is 1780. I wouldn't put that in any kind of an area where I'd say we're pretty worried about that. So with volatility in the 17s and actually dipping into the 16s last Friday, I would say that we are sitting probably in the right spot right now for where that volatility is, because that's what the markets are telling us.
Well, Fastenal, Pete, I know you'll like this one because it's a Winona, Minnesota-based company. And Pete, they put up numbers that were pretty astonishing because they basically make, as the name implies, Fastenal, F-A-S-T is the symbol. They reported second quarter earnings, $208 billion. That beat the estimates. They also beat on the earnings per share. And they look like they're doing a lot of things right, Pete. So this one also had unusual option activity. We always love when we see that. So Fastenal back at the end of June, Pete, was $41 stock. Today it trades through 46. So the 45 calls that were purchased for a mere 15 cents under 2 weeks ago, today went over $1. You guys can do the math there, but that's a pretty good 7x on the trade.
Not so bad. I mean, unless you want to, if you want to be out there trading stocks and making 5% and going woohoo, that's fantastic. Freaking go get it. But I think I'd rather go this direction, John. What I really liked about their earnings too was not only they beat on the revenue, they beat on the earnings, as you mentioned, but they're actually up year to date. I mean, that part of it, I think, is becoming bigger and bigger for me. And they were at $1.92 billion last year in terms of sales, $2.8 billion, as you said, this year at this same quarter. And when the same thing with the earnings were 26 cents. Now they're 29 cents. So they are continuing to improve. They've also got profit margins that have gone up from 20% to 21%. I think across the board, they absolutely crushed it, John. But it is Fastenal, so it's not an AI company. This isn't something that's going to be changing everything else, but it's up 5%. And like you said, in this particular case, that 5% move for the stock, well, that's a significant move on the right options, which is what we had on UOA.
Yeah, well, how about this one, Pete? Sequans. Sequans Communication. Now, I know a lot of you, when you hear Sequan Communication, you think, okay, something perhaps even with cellular semis. Yeah, it would be. But guess why they're up today? Oh, because they bought 683 Bitcoins, Pete. So with their treasury, they said, we're not going to let the money just sit in the cash. We're going to buy Bitcoins with it. Well, already seems like a bit of a smart trade, Pete, because their average price, including exchange fees, was about $116,000. So on paper, anyway, they made $7,000 per Bitcoin, or 7,000 times 683. That's how that works. And I guess that's why people are all bulled up about it. It's up 20% today, Pete.
Yeah. I mean, does it sound a little bit about like MicroStrategy and maybe a few others out there where they're a company that's doing this, but they're investing in that? And it's pretty daggone interesting that they're going to Bitcoin. I know we got another one that's going to be just as interesting for people, but these guys have already come in with 1,053 Bitcoin. They are definitely committed to this, and as they're doing it right now, John, stock's only up 26% today. That's not so terrible. And it's hit the new 52-week highs, which is never so terrible. The low was 95 cents. The high is 576, which is the level they hit at today. So I would say that they're doing something right, at least for right now, and that they're adamant about how they want to approach this into the future, just like we've seen from some of the other names, MicroStrategy being the biggest and the baddest of them all. But like you said, the average acquisition number is pretty impressive as of today. And let's hope for their sake that they continue to see this thing grow and grow and grow. But the Sequan is a very, very interesting one. And I think this is, it's not the only one that we've got where they're going somewhere in the crypto world though, right?
Right. Espec. This is one, Pete, that last week, Jeff Garbaz and Justin Nugent were talking about this one when they sat in for both of us, Pete, on the Rebel's Edge. And they identified this one as unusual activity. And indeed it was, Pete. And in fact, when you take a look, they were buying with the stock at $13.91, Pete. On the 3rd of July, they were buying 6,000 July 1250 calls. That's in the money, of course, by like $1.41. They paid $2.40 for them. Well, stock went today to over $26 a share. And those calls exploded to at least $12.50, Pete. A heck of a nice move. And I would also tell folks that, just like Pete said, there's another company that, even though they do performance marketing for, what is it, casinos and sportsbooks, Pete, they also bought 10,000 Ethereum. Now, they're not the same price as Bitcoin, but still, 10,000 Ethereum, that's a pretty good purchase.
Yeah, I like seeing that as well, John. I'm sitting there looking at it, and these guys decide to go for 10,000 of them, and I think like 2,500 or something like that. I think that's where Ethereum was trading at the time. Mm-hmm. But the interesting part is this. How about this? Just think about, because of what they have done. A year ago, it was March of 2024, so a little more than a year ago. The market cap of the company was 4.8 million. They've made some acquisitions into the Ethereum world, and now it looks like they're at about 1.55 billion, John, as opposed to the 4.8 million of the market cap. So I'd say these guys have figured something out. They're doing something right. And again, it's a playoff of MicroStrategy, right? Except for, instead of Bitcoin, these guys are going for Ethereum and looking for some sort of a at least comparable type move, maybe even a bigger move potentially. But nonetheless, the other thing outside of all of that, we go back to the fundamentals, they got a short interest in this stock, John, of about 9%. So there's going to be a little bit of a squeeze, and the heavier these guys go and the more they talk about going after more, I would think that those shorts are going to really start feeling it. And if they don't, they're going to get squeezed enough that they're going to be helping push this thing even higher. So from the short standpoint, this isn't looking very good. From anybody who's on the long side right now, they're pretty pleased because this stock is ripping.
Yeah. And folks, if you want to take advantage of stuff like this, follow that link that Justin's putting up there to our boot camp, because it is selling out. Pete and I talked about it last week. It's September 19th and 20th. And if you guys want to attend, well, by all means, click on the link, come join us. Friday, September 19th, Saturday, September 20th, 2 days, 1 day of live trading, the other day, a lot more education, and it's going to be fabulous. And it is nearly sold out. So by all means, sign up now. You can buy a ticket, an airfare this far out. It's probably, it's like stealing, Pete. It's probably $150 or something, depending on where you're coming from. But anyway, check it out. Because we'll be explaining how we do unusual option activity, how we trade technicals, and all the rest. Short squeezes with Jeff Garbaz and so forth. So September 19th and 20th, we hope to see you there. All right, Pete, what about Veritex Holdings? This is a bank, community bank in Texas, based in Dallas. And they do a lot of things. They do commercial loans. They do multifamily, they do mortgages and all that. And Huntington Bank shares said, we want them, buy it. 20% jump out of the stock. And they've got an awful lot of assets now that they're piling up at Huntington, Pete.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. As a matter of fact, the Veritex is hitting new highs, 52-week highs off of this, over $33 a share, almost $34 a share. 1.9 billion on this acquisition. By the way, how many times have we talked about acquisitions over the last couple of weeks, would you say, John, where $1 billion here, $3 billion there, $2 billion here, $3 billion there? Again, the investment banks, I think, reflect that this could be pretty interesting with this earnings this week. We'll find out more. But Huntington Bank, heck, John, they're the ones who sponsor the University of Minnesota football. So that's what that stadium is, Huntington Bank. So these guys wanted to get a lot more exposure, and the exposure they're getting is down in Texas, which is exactly where they wanted to be. So this seems to be something it was a perfect marriage. It gives them the exposure they want down there, and they are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I know they're still, considered a regional, which they are, but with these kinds of acquisitions into the future, I think they want a bigger footprint in Texas even than they've already got. And for anybody who hasn't been in Texas in a while, I was just there last week, I can tell you this. It is absolutely on fire. Everywhere you go in Texas, they are building, building, building. It's not like a lot of places where you're not seeing cranes in the air, because you are, whether it's in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, whatever. I was in all three. It was on, John. It was truly on. They are building and bringing in more and more and more. And it's not just Elon Musk and Tesla. and Apple. There's a lot more than just those companies that are coming there. It's amazing.
Yep, it is pretty amazing, Pete. And it's a fabulous move, I think, expanding into a growing market like that. Because, banks grow at a pace based on people putting money in the bank and the bank making the interest rate spread, among other things. Well, when you've got that many people moving there, it's a good thing. All right, let's dive into sports, Pete. I know you're all bulled up about the usual suspects, so I'll let you go and let's see what you got.
All right, we're going to start off with college football, NCAA football, Colorado, Dion Sanders. Now, this one's pretty interesting for me, John, and you have your ties into there, so I'm curious. So I would say this. I think Dion Sanders has been listening to the Rebels Edge. I know you've had a daughter who goes to school in Colorado. You've been there plenty yourself. You've probably bumped shoulders here and there with Dion when you're in town, because I'm sure he'd want to, get in your brain about what's going on in the market with all the money he's getting, which is $10 million a year. Not so bad. But at the Big 12 Media Day, John, he was totally different than he's been the previous 2 years down there in Colorado, John. And here's why I say that. He said sports are getting hurt by the unregulated players and the movement that we are seeing. I don't know anybody who uses the portal more than Dion Sanders. I don't know anybody who's taken the money that they've gotten and they're paying athletes as much as Dion Sanders has been able to do. So I think it's interesting that now he's taking our side of things, which is, hey, how about a damn salary cap? They do it in the NFL. They got to figure out a way to have some form of a cap, but nobody's really given the perfect answer yet. But it's something you and I have talked about for a really long time. Why is the NFL the best? It's because they have a real salary cap. It gives even the lowest end of the ring of a ladder. They have an opportunity because everybody's got the same salary cap, $255 million. It's probably now almost $300 million for the cap, but nonetheless, it's a cap, and it gives everybody an opportunity to be there. College sports, that's not the case. As a matter of fact, John, when you look around, yes, there's this settlement. Everybody's going to get $20.5 million each, every school that's part of the biggest of the big, right? But outside of that, they still raise money. They still got Ohio State money, Michigan money, Notre Dame money, Georgia, Alabama, all of them, where you're competing right now against schools where you've got $25 or $30 million committed to freshman classes that are coming in. I mean, so somewhere along the line, you've got to get it. But I love that at least he's finally come on board, John, that there needs to be a cap. But I noticed the timing of his asking of the cap is pretty interesting, too, since both his kids just got out of school.
Pete, I was looking for some numbers, and I'm sure they're out there, but the best I was able to find was that somebody was tracking the 5430 initiative, and that's, I guess, what is the driver for facilitating NIL, name, image, and likeness deals. Colorado was 46th among active college football programs in terms of NIL. And as you said, Pete, they had a couple guys, three really, I guess, Travis Hunter, Shadur, and the Sanders brothers, I'll say, accounted for about $7.5 million by themselves of the NIL. I think Travis might have been close to 3 million, Pete. But to be 43rd or 46th among all these active colleges, you do have to wonder when the money does stop. Because, if you're Georgia and or Tennessee or South Carolina or, pick the school, how do they pay these guys as much as they're paying them year after year after year? And quite frankly, the answer is some of these contracts aren't worth the paper that they're not written on. They give the kid, oh yeah, we'll give you $4 million to come play here. And then the kid never even got it. That's why some of these guys transfer, because they're like, heck with this. If you're not going to pay me, I'm going. And I think, I'm not saying it's ruined the game, but it certainly changed the game. The portal changed it and the NIL, and they could do a good deed for all of these sports by putting an overall cap on how much they can spend. I think that's just the right thing.
Yep. It's got to happen at some point in time. Who knows when? But, he was very adamant at the Big 12 media conferences, John, about that number and having to get a cap. So I'm glad he's on that board now, but I wish he'd have been on there a year ago, maybe, just to make it look a little bit better. As far as the NFL, I thought this would be a fun one because we're not that far away from the camps getting started again, right? So I'll give you my 5, and then you can criticize it as much as you want or move guys around. But I got the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL for 2025 for you. I'm going to start off with Lamar Jackson. I put him at number 1. Now, There's a lot of good arguments for other guys, so I get it. But here's why I put him at number 1. John, the guy threw for 41 touchdowns, very high. How many interceptions? 4. There's some guys who have 4 in a game. Lamar Jackson had 4 for the season, 17 games. He also ran for 900 yards, and he got a couple of touchdowns doing that. Joe Burrow was 43-9. Not so bad, pretty damn good. He doesn't even have a defense there, so that's something that they got to work on. They got to help him with the offensive line too, but that's a hell of a one. So I love what he's doing. Josh Allen, 28-6, but the guy's big as a tight end, can runs the ball really well as a quarterback. They probably wish he wouldn't do it as much as he's done it, but Buffalo's got that new stadium they're building. It looks unbelievable. And I think that that's going to be the house that Josh built because Josh Allen is special. Baker Mayfield, that's my kind of dark horse that I'm throwing out there because nobody seems to want to give the kid credit ever since he failed as the first pick in the draft at Cleveland. Okay. Carolina didn't really do all that great. Okay. I think he bounced to San Francisco for a minute or two. Didn't do anything really there. And then all of a sudden he comes to Tampa. He gets to Tampa, and what does he do? He lights it up. This past year, he had 41 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So I have to put him in there, John. And then last, I'll throw in Jared Goff. But the problem for Jared is they lost the offensive coordinator, lost the defensive coordinator. The offense is obviously going to be a little bit different. And Jaden Daniels, the problem for me with him, because I think he's unbelievable, the only problem for him, and he runs a lot too, is that sophomore slump. It seems like everybody falls into it. They start off great, and then they kind of start to slump a little bit that second year, and then they can come back. But, I just wonder if that's going to happen to Jaden. Do you like that list, and do you like the order, or do you like it mixed up a little bit?
Well, I got to put Herbert in there, Pete.
Yeah, I like it.
I like your Lamar Jackson pick. By the way, all of these guys that Pete's talking about, until you get to Jaden Daniels, all of these guys are 28, 29 years old. Mm-hmm. They are young. And Jaden, I think, is going to be, one of the best of the whole batch, Pete. Obviously, you got to throw Mahomes in there, but Stafford, he's the only QB in the top 10 rated QBs, Pete, that is over 30 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a young class from Josh Allen, 29, Mahomes, 29, Lamar Jackson, 28. I mean, these guys could play for a lot of years, especially with the new rules on how much you can touch them or not touch them.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert, 27, Pete. Jared Goff, like you said, he's turning 30, I believe, but I don't think he was 30 when they did these rankings. And Jalen Hurts, only 26.
Yeah.
And after seeing him in the Super Bowl, how do you not want that guy? I mean, if you picked a guy to start for your team, a lot of people would say Mahomes. I get it. But Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, they will run through a wall to get that first down. They are extending to get, that third and whatever. They're going to get that first down. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't want to be the punter at all on those teams because you don't get to punt much on either of those two teams, Pete. You're not even going to get into the whole list of the best. But I think those guys are great. Stroud could have the same kind of year that Jaden Daniels had last year and that Stroud had his first year in the league. This will be his third. So watch that kid because he's something special too.
Yep. Some great quarterbacks, and the Big 12 has got some great quarterbacks this year, John, too, as far as the draft. People are starting to talk about this coming draft already, even though we haven't even started the season yet for college football. But people are already saying, you know what, the Big 12 is really deep on quarterbacks. And if that's the case, I'd even say, well, probably the Big 10 is pretty deep as well, because there's some pretty damn quarterbacks in the Big 10 that are, I think, going to be pretty high up picks as well. So there's another young group that's going to be coming, and it's going to be pretty interesting. Even the draft this year was pretty interesting. There was more guys, quarterbacks going in this year's draft than everybody predicted as far as the first round and so forth. So, yeah. It's out there, and the Vikings are going to run with their guy who they got last year. They traded all the way up to the 10th pick with JJ, and that kid's going to be special. The more they show highlights here, John, and I know it's just highlights, you're not getting a rush on him or anything. That kid is just really accurate, and all you got to do is look at his past, what he did. He won in everything in high school, won everything in college, and now he's here at the Minnesota Vikings with, I don't know, maybe the best receiving group of anybody in the whole NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a phenomenal year for you guys. We'll have to talk about that later in the week.
Yeah.
Pick the winners and losers as far as the top teams in each division.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. Again, he is Pete Najarian. We encourage you to check out the boot camp, which will be going on September 19th and 20th down in Aventura, Florida. It's basically northern Miami. And it's going to be fabulous. It's at Cardone's headquarters. Everything is state of the art there, folks.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the screens, I think they got like 8 screens there. As far as the seating, everything is going to be first class. We encourage you guys to sign up now, because if you don't, you won't make it. By the time we get to August, this thing will be done, Pete. So follow that link. We hope to see you there, and we hope you join us tomorrow at what time, Pete? What time are we doing tomorrow?
1 o'clock Eastern time daily.
1 o'clock.